Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a super sloppy sports and entertainment talk show that covers New York Giants football, Mets baseball, movies, TV shows, and with some funny stories and life lessons mixed in along the way for good measure. It's hosted by Giant Mess. It's me, the Real Cinch Neal Lynch. I'm a former college quarterback and pitcher and current over-analyst who's just trying to figure out what the hell's going on. On this here episode, we're going to recap the Mets series against the Yankees, only a 2-game set, and then a 3-game homestand against the Cardinals. Also look ahead to the upcoming series against the Astros and Phillies. What are my predictions for these two series? I know you're hanging on to the very edge of your seat for those. And we'll look at some key stats. I'm a big stats guy. I love stats. So we're going to stat it up. Stat it up. Some key stats that I think are some good signs and that we should hold on to in these dark times. Then we'll finish the episode with some Giants talk. We're still talking about Saquon Barkley and the contract negotiations. Things have changed a little bit in that Saquon has now spoken to the media for the first time about what happened and what's going on. So that was interesting to hear. We'll look at why there is such a great pay disparity for running backs versus other position groups, along with some notes and observations from OTAs as that wrapped up. And then there are some ways that Wink Martindale's defense looks to be different this season versus last season. So with that intro out the way, let us get it started up in here. You gotta believe, right? The New York Mets, you gotta believe. You gotta believe, right? You gotta believe? Do you have to believe? Yes, you have to believe. They are testing our faith. And I think a lot of people, a lot of fans, a lot of Mets fans are fed up and probably want out. And I don't argue that. They're bad for your mental health. We can all agree on that. They're bad for your mental health. And they find new ways to torture us and to put us into a spiral. And my predictions last week on the last episode, my predictions for this homestand versus the Yankees and Cardinals, I had a splitting with the Yankees and sweeping those lowly Cardinals who are going through some pretty nasty doldrums, underperforming worse than the Mets have been underperforming, if you can even fathom that. 2-game set against the Yankees. Offense gives us a 5-1 lead. And with Scherzer on the bump, you figure, in any other season, that's a friggin' lock. It's a guarantee. We're coming out with a dub. And instead, Scherzer implodes. And we lose the game. Lindor came up in a big spot. We didn't have Pete Alonso, so Lindor gets bumped down one spot in the order. Bases loaded, 1 out in the 8th, and Lindor strikes out. Drew Smith got ejected for sticky stuff. We are now the only team in the majors with 2 violations. Our AAA affiliate also has 2 violations. Some would say we're being targeted. And I don't want to subscribe to that way of thinking. I have enough paranoia in my life. I don't need to add the Mets being targeted to that paranoia and to say that baseball is fixed. This is in the NBA. MLB is not rigged. But if it were, they would probably go after Steve Cohen. Steve Cohen has a huge bullseye on his back and on his forehead and on his chest and basically all over his body, just bullseyes. He looks like a walking, talking ad for Target. So I can understand how it's very easy to succumb to that style of thinking. To think that we're targeted, MLB's against us. A lot of the owners hate Steve Cohen. I think a lot of people are not big fans of Steve Cohen. And so they're trying to punish him and the team because we have the highest payroll. And the Major League Baseball doesn't want you to think like a lot of Mets fans thought about the Yankees for many years. They buy championships. And I'm sure Red Sox fans have that same sentiment about the Yankees. Oh, they buy championships. So the irony of us facing the Yankees and us having the higher payroll and getting these kind of things to happen to us. So Scherzer blows the lead. And we can't hold on. And their offense, the bats go silent after coming out hot. McNeil, then Wednesday, we lose in extra innings, which is rare for us. We have a pretty good record in extra innings, extra frames. We were 21-10 going into that one. We're now 21-11. Dominic Leone, unfortunately, gets the loss. He's been performing pretty well for a guy that wasn't on our radar to begin the season and joined after, I forget when he joined, but he was not on the opening day roster. So it's good to see him, someone who wasn't like tallied. Is that the word? Hailed, wasn't part of the mix, is now coming up big. Oh, my God. We won in extra frames. Jesus Christ, Neil. Oh, boy. Stuff happens to your brain when you get older, and I'm pretty sure that's happening with me. The Mets win in extra frames. Dominic Leone gets the win in the 10th inning. Of course, Jeff McNeil adding to the concerns that were getting targeted and that MLB rigged against the Mets. Jeff McNeil gets called for a shift violation, which that's the first time I've seen that happen, but apparently we're the second team in MLB to get called for a shift violation. And it's literally because he was guarding second base to hold the runner on, and his right foot was on the wrong side of the bag. And that was it. But we did get the walk-off win. Brandon Nimmo coming up huge after having a very horrific base running blunder when the game was tied 3-3. We had a Cora holding up our runner. I think it was Marte coming around third. He held him up, and Nimmo just didn't see it or whatever, just kept on chugging along and got caught and tried to get back. And some will say, after looking at the replay, that I thought he was for sure out. But then you look at it in super slow-mo, and it looks like Ty goes the runner. Like his hand touched right at the same time the glove touched the chin, whatever. Verlander was okay, allowed 1 earned run and 3 hits with 6 strikeouts. I think we'll take that. Like that's exactly what we'll take every outing. The bullpen is not still, coming apart at the seams. But I think that loss is probably on the Yankees. The Yankees went 1 for 15 with runners in scoring position in game 2. So I know they've sorely missed Aaron Judge. They did not have Aaron Judge for this series. So we split the series as expected. Good to have the walk-off win. You would like to think that the walk-off win gives you some kind of motivation and momentum, mojo, something with a mo at the beginning of it. And we took that momentum into our off day on Thursday and then into the Father's Day, Juneteenth weekend. Tyler McGill squared up against Miles Mikolas. And McGill gave us a gem. 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts. Dominic Leone, another great appearance. Only 1 hit, 1 strikeout. Josh Walker, who I'll have some stats about later on in the episode, 2 innings, 3 strikeouts. So Josh Walker has been a huge addition to the bullpen. Vogelbach. Did we get a Vogel bomb in this game? 1 for 3 with a ding dong. Tommy Pham 2 for 4 with 2 ribbies. Brett Beatty 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs. Marte 2 for 4, 2 runs. McNeil 2 for 4, 2 runs. So the offense came out, and like we've been saying, McGill is just a better pitcher at home. Maybe we think about not pitching him on the road. It's just you keep pitching here at home. You don't even have to travel with us to the away games. Okay. You just stay right here, nice and safe in your home territory, and you don't have to worry about pitching anywhere else. So, that's good to see that 6-1 win. So you start to think, all right, is this where we get hot? Is this where we start to pile on the wins? Because that's what everyone's waiting for. When are we going to start going on a friggin' streak and really start getting super duper ultra hot and start to catch up? Because we are down bad. Saturday, we had Kodai Senga versus Adam Wainwright. I cannot friggin' wait for Adam Wainwright to take his gold watch in retirement and shove it directly up his ass. Like, I cannot take any more Adam Wainwright in my life. So glad Yadi Molina is like not a thing anymore. They just had this whole like segment on Yadi Molina and like how long he played and all these great stats. And it was just like, good, go, get out of here. And Wainwright, you go with him. Paul Goldschmidt is still a problem. 2 for 4, two ribeyes. Jordan Walker also performing well for the Cardinals. Wainwright went 6 1/3, 7 hits, 3 earned, 2 walks, 3 Ks. So nothing that spectacular, but he just kept us in check. You know, we didn't. I don't think most of the lineup had much success, and Kodai was not bad either. 6 2/3, 5 hits, 4 earned, 1 walk, 8 Ks. It was just that one bad inning in the second inning where he gave up 3 earned runs that really ended up being the difference. You know, and the offense didn't do much after that 5th inning where we scored 2. You know, so yeah, that was a bummer. That's that you figure when you get that kind of stat line from Kodai Senga, that should be a win, and instead we come in with a loss, and you think, all right, so the sweep not so much, but then Sunday, that was the one that I felt we really needed, and I thought we could have come away with the win. And I think if this is last year's team, we do. You know, it was a bit of a slugfest right out the gate. There were 9 runs scored in the first 2 innings, and then only 1 run in the last 4. We got to Matthew Liberatore. He gave 5 earned runs in 4 innings. But the Cardinals bullpen kind of helped put the lockdown on our offense. Cookie Carrasco is just a disaster. I really thought that maybe this was like his redemption tour. You know, he was finally emerging from his slumber, and we were seeing a different kind of Cookie, and he just resorted to his old ways. Regressed again. 3 innings. Yuck. 5 hits, 5 earned runs, 3 walks, 4 Ks. So I don't know that you can really count on him to be part of the rotation. I don't know. I can't see it. It feels like it's becoming an automatic loss. So that's something that I think they have to address. Our starting rotation is pretty poor, but he is the worst of our starting rotation. So that's something that, I don't even know. The thing is, you can't, can you trade him? I don't think so. You'd have to package a lot more than just him to get anything back in return. So it's kind of is what it is. It's like, hey, Carlos, have you seen our bullpen? You should check it out. It's pretty cool, man. They got like a bench, and you can pretty much do whatever you want out there. No one cares. So it's like maybe the bullpen is for you. So, yeah, we lose 8-7, and it was in the top of the 9th. Adam Ottavino giving up the home run, game-winning home run, what would be the game-winning home run. And Ottavino's been struggling this year. And so we ended up losing that series. When I thought we could have swept, we ended up losing. Nolan Arenado, top 9, 1 out, 2-1 count, bases empty. And St. Louis's win probability increased 38 percentage points to 82%. So where do we stand as of today, June 19th, 2023? Happy Juneteenth, y'all. We're 33-38, 5 games under 500. We're 12.5 back of the Braves. Again, I don't even know why I keep bringing up that. Don't think about that. Let's just put that out your mind. How many games back we are of the first place division leader. Let's not even bring that up anymore. And that's a note from me. I'm not going to bring that up anymore. We're just going to bring up the wild card race because that's what we're focused on, right? Baseball Reference has 90% confidence that our best case scenario will be 86-76 as our finishing record. Will that be good enough to make the wild card? Possibly. You know, there are 3 wild card spots with the expanded playoff format. 86-76 in a very mediocre National League could get it done. You know, and so what kind of baseball do we have to play to get to that mark? I don't think it's going to be that crazy. I think maybe, we'll get into it right now. The Athletic had a pretty cool article about, basically, should the Mets fan base panic? Is it over? That kind of thing. We've been talking about this for a few weeks now. Memorial Day weekend was really, I guess, the time when fans start taking standings seriously. But they surveyed a group of 30 players, and they said most of them, almost every single guy, would shrug and mention it was a long season. The 2019 Nationals, who we've referenced before, started in 1931. They were under 500 for the last time on June 26th, which is still a week away. We're still under 500. And they ended up playing to a second half winning percentage of .630, which sounds high, I know. But ultimately, that's like you're taking less than 2 out of a 3-game series. If you can win 2 out of 3, keep doing that. You're at a better pace than what the 2019 Nationals were doing in the second half to eventually get into the playoffs and then to the World Series. The 2021 Atlanta Braves entered the All-Star break under 500 and didn't really turn things on until an 18-win August, which and they ended up playing a .611 second half winning percentage. So we had to ask ourselves, could this Mets team win at a 600 clip? 6 out of 10 games. Can we do that? Can we go 6-4 every 10 games for the next, I don't know how, for not even starting now, it would be after the All-Star break. So we still have 3-ish weeks until the All-Star break. If we can start just playing 500 ball and creeping our way to 600 over the next 3 weeks, you got to start feeling a little bit more positive about our situation. So in 2022, the Phillies were 30-29. That's not exactly, gangbusters. And they were 2.5 games back. The 2018 Dodgers were 33-32. We're 3 games back. I think the part that I think a lot of naysayers are clinging on to is that the run differentials are just not there for the Mets. Philadelphia was +40. Atlanta was just -2. Washington was just -1. LA was +48 and +90. The Mets are -23. 2016 Cubs had the best record in the National League on June 12th and would go on to win the World Series, as did the 2014 Giants had the best record in the National League on June 12th and went on to win the World Series. I think at the time of publishing of that article, the Mets have a 34% chance of making the playoffs. I think that's actually gone lower after losing 2 of 3 to the freaking Cardinals. And there are 4 other teams that have been underperforming that we expected more out of, that are, the Padres, Cardinals, like we mentioned, the Mariners, and the White Sox. So with the trade deadline coming down the pike, maybe we should look at the Mets' impending free agents. Carlos Carrasco, Mark Canha, Eduardo Escobar, David Robertson, Tommy Pham, Brooks Raley, Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, Starling Marte, and Adam Ottavino. With pretty much any of those dudes, because considering their age and how much money they're making, we'll probably have to eat some money in a deal to get any kind of talent back. And I said this last episode, you have to start seriously considering dealing Max Scherzer and or Justin Verlander. Carlos Carrasco, I don't know who's going to take him. He'd have to be part of a package. Do you really want to give up, and this is maybe with the recent success of Canha and Pham, and with Pete Alonso back in the lineup, after 11 days on the IL when he was supposed to be out 3 to 4 weeks. Oh my gosh. Does that mean you could move either Canha or Pham? I don't know that anyone, is anyone dying to get Eduardo Escobar? If you deal David Robertson, our bullpen is absolutely shot. Brooks Raley has been one of the better performers in our bullpen, but we get rid of him, we don't have anyone to fill that void. Starling Marte, maybe. This is we said last week, these are the tough decisions that you're going to have to make. So let's take a look at the upcoming schedule. Right now, the Mets are playing the Astros. It's the top of the 5th. The Mets are up 5-0. Max Scherzer has looked pretty good so far, but then again, he looked good through 5 innings against the Yankees and then shit the bed. So this is just another replay of that Yankees game where we ended up losing? I don't know. I fully expected a sweep, but I didn't really, if we can come out with the win tonight, we have Verlander on the bump tomorrow. We are facing Framber Valdez, who's 6-5 with a 2.27 ERA. So I don't know. First impressions. I mean, I didn't think we had a chance in this one with Hunter Brown starting. Hunter Brown's 6-3 with a 3.35 ERA, but we got to him fairly early. I would have to say that unless Verlander wants to, this is like a revenge game for Verlander, I guess. I don't know. He got his World Series ring tonight. Maybe that gives him a little extra juice, and he goes out there and has something to prove against his old team. And we get like awesome Verlander versus shitty Verlander. And then Wednesday we have, like I said, Tyler McGill versus Christian Javier. I've chalked that up as a loss. McGill stinks on the road, and Christian Javier is 7-1 with a 2.9 ERA. Not to mention our history, right? With the Astros, we've lost all 4 of our meetings with the Astros last season. We've dropped 7 consecutive games to Houston dating back to 2017. Our last win was September of 2014, an 8-3 win by Bartolo Colon, where Bobby Abreu played right field. 2014 was a fun year, right? And then we have Thursday off. Next Thursday off, and then we go to Philadelphia, where it's always sunny. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3-game set. Kodai Senga versus Zach Wheeler. That should be a fun game. And then Carlos Carrasco versus Christopher Sanchez. That should be not a fun game. And then on Sunday, June 25th, we got Mad Max against Ranger Suarez, who's 1-2 with a 3.82 ERA. We did sweep the Phillies at Citi Field earlier in the season, and we're 17-5 against the Phillies since the start of last season, and we went 7-3 at Citizens Bank Ballpark in 2022. So that being said, the Phillies, if we look at the standings here, have improved significantly since we swept them. They're 38-34, and they're 8 games back. The Marlins have been on an absolute tear and are now 5 games back of the Braves, who can't lose. But the Marlins are one of the hottest teams in baseball. 41-31, 10 games above 500. Hachi mama. Who had that on their bingo card? I don't know, dude. So, but it could all come crashing down. Strikes and gutters. Remember Big Lebowski? All right, so let's talk. And then after the Phillies series, we have a 4-game homestand against the Brewers. So are the Brewers the same Brewers that we faced earlier in the season in Milwaukee? That is yet to be seen. But you'd have to think, if we can pull out the win tonight in Houston, maybe Verlander does come up with an absolute gem, and we can take 2 or 3 against Houston, which I think everyone would sign up for that. And then can you sweep the Phillies again? Can you take 2 or 3 from them again? I don't know. With that Carrasco start is just eating away at me. But Kodai gives you what he normally does, and Max has the ability to dial it up at least for 5 innings. Maybe we take 2 or 3 from the Phillies. And then you're looking for a 6, and then you're looking at somewhat of a getting hot. When we score 7 runs, so they did I think this is from The Athletic. Oh, no, sorry. I pulled this off Twitter. There are comparisons from this season to last season. When we score 7 runs last season, we're 44-2, dude. When we score 7 runs in 2023, we're 10-6. And we have lost 6 straight games when scoring 7 or more runs. And this is where we get into the whole chicken and the egg thing. Like, is it the hitting? Is it the pitching? Is it the pitching? Is it the hitting? When we hit well, the pitching does not stand on its own, doesn't hold up. And then when we don't hit, the pitching is like lights out. It's like, can you guys, hey, real quick, can you guys just get into a room together, conference room, just like talk it out? Like, hey, tonight, let's both play well. When scoring 6 runs, the 2022 Mets, and I know this is like, we have to start thinking of the 2022 Mets as like an anomaly. They were just like, I don't know, is the stars aligned? It was just one of those seasons. It was a magical season that just came to a very abrupt, awful ending. But when scoring 6 runs, the 22 Mets were 55-4. And the 23 Mets it's 12-10. When scoring 5 runs, the 22 Mets are 76-5. The 2023 Mets are 22-13. And when scoring 4 runs, the 2022 Mets are 87-8, whereas the 2023 Mets are 26-17. So you would think with the league average ERA hovering around 4-ish, that if we can score 5 or more runs, we should win most of those games. And it looks like that is confirmed, stands corrected. Although you look at 6 runs, when we score 6 runs, 12-10. And when scoring 7 runs, 10-6. That just, We've now dropped a home series to all 3 last place teams in the National League. 6-10 against those teams, the Nats, Cardinals, and Rockies, which is just like, and if we miss the playoffs, that's what a lot of people are going to point to. You know, people used to remember last season, we all would kind of poke fun at the Mets for beating bad teams in ugly fashion, but they beat them. Like, that's ultimately when we're on our deathbed and we look back, that's just going to be W's. No one's going to remember that we nearly botched it in the 9th. Like, we won. So that's what is going to be very upsetting to me if we miss the playoffs, is losing against bad teams with poor records, losing records. When other teams beat up on them, we're not. And that's how we're losing ground. And what's eating away at me even more are the errors. You know, week after week, we've pointed to the defense being so rock solid. And we're first in the majors, or at least the National League, in fewest errors by our defense. And that has, the wheels have come off of that one too. We had 2 errors on Sunday, 13 in our last 11 games. And like I mentioned, the Brandon Nimmo base running error, just lackadaisical. Like, we need mental clarity here. We need to focus and think right. And we're just not doing that. This is the largest division deficit since late in the 2019 season. We're tied for 11th in the National League. We haven't won a series in our last 5 tries. So there's a lot. It's like, you know, I don't think this is rock bottom. It'd be one thing if we were getting blown out every game. I think that would be much more concerning if we looked lifeless and we're losing by 3, 4, 5 runs or more. We're playing fairly close ball games. I'll say that. And as highly touted as the Astros are, and rightfully so, they were swept at home by the Reds, who are streaking. I think they might be in second place and could be in first place if a game or 2 goes this way or that way. Astros have lost 10 of their last 14. And I think that's a major reason why is because Yordan Alvarez is on the 60-day IL with an oblique. I think he's already missed 10 days, 10 games, something like that. And he was crushing. He had like 7 before his injury. He had 17 home runs and 55 RBIs or something like that. So thank the Lord above that Yordan Alvarez. It's like we're catching breaks. We didn't have to face Aaron Judge. We don't have to face Yordan Alvarez. And but Houston is 39-33. They've dropped into 3rd place in American League West, and they're 5.5 games behind the Rangers, just outside the AL playoff picture. The American League, I would not want to be an American League team. You got the freaking Astros at 39-33 who won't make the playoffs, and you have so many, like the entire AL East should be in the playoffs, if we had our way, but that's not the way it can shake out. So maybe we're catching the Astros at a really good time. The Phillies finished off a weekend sweep over the Athletics, who had gone on a streak of their own. 6-1 road trip against the Diamondbacks, who are the top of the NL West, and the A's. The Phillies are now 13-3 since being swept at Citi Field to start June, and they're 1 game behind San Francisco for a playoff berth. But they are hosting the Braves starting tomorrow. So they could come in, they could get swept, and then we could sweep, and then they're right back down with us in the basement. No, not the basement, but you get it. So I wanted to point out some Tommy Pham just scored to make it 6-0. And speaking of the devil, Tommy Pham over his pass. Fuck me. Tommy Pham over his past 15 games. 17 for 49, which is good for a 347 average, 6 doubles and a triple, 4 homers and 17 ribbies. Since June 1st, he's batting .324 with a .333 on-base percentage, .703 slugging percentage for a 1.036 OPS. 5 doubles, 3 homers, 11 ribbies, 6 runs and a stolen base. And not to be outdone, Mark Canha's last 15 games, basically filling in for Pete Alonso at first here and there when Mark Vientos isn't doing the job there. His slash line, 302, 434, 512, 3 doubles, 2 homers, 8 walks, 10 ribbies for a 165 weighted runs created plus. I friggin' nailed it for the first time in my life. So, and now Vogelbach has gone deep against the Astros, against Hunter Brown. So is Vogelbach suddenly catching fire? It's not like exactly a flick of the switch, right? But you're starting to see that. I keep saying this, the tides are turning. It does feel like the tides are turning, even though we're not winning a lot of games. We're competitive, and yeah, there are times where the lineup just like forgets. They just forget. But it does feel like we are, for the most part, in most games, mashing, or at least mashing enough to get us wins. And Mark Canha and Tommy Pham have been big reasons why. So good to see them turn around. Now it's Starling Marte's turn. Now it's his turn. Like, it was good to see him get a double, and what does that do? It's like he gets a double, he gets moved to third, and he comes on home. It makes life so much easier when you get these extra base hits. Speaking of extra base hits and slugging, the most home runs by a Met in their first 49 career games. Pete Alonso had 16. Francisco Alvarez has 13. In 49 big league games, Francisco Alvarez has posted a .539 slugging percentage. That's the 19th highest slugging percentage among players younger than 22 in their first 49 career games, with a minimum of 150 at-bats. So he might have cooled a little bit, but I voted for him to be an all-star, and I'm not, I used to be way more of a homer where it's like, I'm just, as a kid, it's just like Met. No matter how many games they've missed, or like they might not even be on the roster anymore. And I'm like, yep. So but Alvarez was like, Alonso was for sure. I voted for him. And then Alvarez was another one, because I just think he's come on so strong, and he's throwing guys out. You remember there was an episode earlier on when he first came up, and I was bitching about how the pitch clock and these new rules are unfair to catchers. And it seems like he's one of the more successful catchers in throwing dudes out. So only good things coming from Francisco Alvarez. And we talked about Josh Walker. Josh Walker had a pretty good series against the Yankees and the Cardinals. 4-2 to start his MLB career. 4 2/3 innings, 5 Ks, 1.93 ERA, 1.07 WHIP. Opposing hitters are hitting 188 against him, and he's got a 2.42 FIP, fielding independent pitching. So I think Josh Walker has been a huge boost for the bullpen. Dominic Leone has been underrated in helping out the bullpen. In his last 8 appearances, 9 1/3 innings pitched, 4 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 10 Ks, 6 inherited runners, 0 inherited scored for 1.93 ERA. So we got in the darkest of times, correct? And I hate to say this, it's always darkest before the dawn, but you can start to see little shimmers of light peeking through the clouds. Josh Walker, Dominic Leone, Tommy Pham, Mark Canha, Francisco Alvarez. Like, guys are starting to pick up their game. Even Vogelbach looks like he's gotten a little bit of his swagger back, a little bit of his mojo. And if everyone can just play up to what they're capable of and not slump, it's so hard. Remember, consistency is key. And we've talked about consistency throughout the season. You need to be more consistent. And we're starting to get guys to come up and play more consistently. And I'll finish this Mets section by saying this. There was an article from Metsmerized Online, and I hate to say the word triggered, but it elicited a reaction, a strong reaction from me. It compared this season's Mets, the 2023 Mets, to the 1992 Mets. And maybe some of you watching or listening aren't of the age where you remember the 92 Mets. And I think most of my audience is around the same age as me, 35 to 44, whatever, what have you. The 1992 Mets were a clusterfuck. They also had the highest payroll in baseball at $45 million. Oh man, the 90s. And they were 31-35 after 66 games. Eddie Murray came in. Willie Randolph was signed. Bobby Bonilla from the Pirates. We added Brett Saberhagen, 2-time Cy Young Award winner, through a trade for Greg Jeffries and Kevin McReynolds going to the Royals, which really, I remember 11-year-old me being steamed when that trade happened, because despite what a lot of the fellow Mets players thought about Greg Jeffries, that came out way after the fact, and even some of them now have said they've regretted it and they think that maybe they were too hard on him. I love Greg Jeffries. I mean, he was the guy who had me swinging a wiffle bat underneath the water in my pool because he did it. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to do that. That's going to help me swing. And then Kevin McReynolds. I just love Kevin McReynolds so much because he seemed like he's kind of a biggish dude, but wasn't like, seemed kind of unassuming, but I just loved how he swung the bat and I loved how he hit homers. So it was a very sad day to see Jeffries and McReynolds leave, and to get Saberhagen back. You're like, well, at least we're getting Brett Saberhagen. And then it's like Saberhagen just completely fell apart. Our rotation was David Cone, Dwight Gooden, and Saberhagen, obviously. We let Frank Viola walk, which sucked, but we thought we were okay with Sid Fernandez and Pete Shurik, who I don't even remember Pete Shurik. Eddie Murray eventually hit 16 home runs, which is pretty bad, and almost 600 at-bats. Bonilla's average was 249. He hit 19 home runs. Hojo, my favorite player of that era, 223 average with just 7 home runs in just 100 games. David Cone was traded in August. Gooden posted 10-13 record. Saberhagen missed significant time, finishing with a 3-5 mark over 15 starts, and closer John Franco missed time due to injuries. So you see a lot of parallels and a lot of comparisons. Edwin Diaz, our closer in 2023, will miss a lot of time, probably the whole season, and I don't even know if we're going to make the playoffs. We brought in a Cy Young Award winner in Justin Verlander, who's missed time due to injuries. We have another Cy Young Award winner in Max Scherzer, who missed time due to injuries and might miss more time due to injuries. Who's to say that we don't trade one of our starting pitchers at the deadline? A guy that we thought we could count on posting a sub 500 record. Dudes that usually perform, not performing. And this is like the worst case scenario. You know, we talked about Baseball Reference and their 90% confidence in the best case scenario. Their worst case scenario has us with a 70-92 record. The 1992 Mets ended the season with a 72-90 record. So that would suck, because the 91-92 Mets and even the 93 Mets, maybe even the 94 Mets, it was not until the 96-97 Mets when you started to get a little more hope and optimism back in the organization. That stretch from 91 to 95 almost made me stop being a Mets fan. I was 11 through age 14. Those are some very formative years where you're associating with brands and making lifelong associations with certain brands. And like the Mets weren't looking so hot. It's like, oh, cool, Neil. So after 4 or 5 seasons of like basically being one of the best teams in the majors, you have a few down seasons, you're going to jump ship. It's like, I was a kid. What do you want? And it's like, then they start announcing the Colorado Rockies and Arizona Diamondbacks are entering the league. I'm like, interesting. It's like, you know, you start playing around and start thinking about other teams, because the 91 to 95 Mets were tough. Then we get like Lance Johnson, Bernard Gilkey, and we started to see some sparks that made me feel good. John Olerud in 97, then we get Piazza in 98, and so you start to go on that run. Where the 92 Mets differ from the 2023 Mets. There was and this is why I initially didn't read the article, and I just kind of brushed it off like, no way. Because I remember the stories that were coming out about the 91 and 92 Mets. Vince Coleman, throwing fireworks at the media. There's guys with bleach and super soakers squirting people with bleach. And like, it was just a shit show. It was just a horrible clubhouse. Just constantly getting in trouble. And so there's a lot of like not so great vibes with that clubhouse. I don't get that sense with this clubhouse. You don't have stories coming out about this and that. And the media would be all over it. They wouldn't miss that. So that is where I see the big difference between the 92 Mets and the 2023 Mets. The 91 Mets also, I don't think, they definitely didn't make the playoffs, but I don't think they were, they went 77 and 84 and they finished fifth in the NL East. We had Bud Harrelson as our manager and then Mike Cubbage because Bud Harrelson got fired. And then in 92, we had Jeff Torborg. It was like we didn't have Buck Showalter-esque type manager. And we didn't, last season we had 101 wins. That didn't happen in 91. So I think the expectations are for sure a lot different. It's tough for me to see this team going 72 and 90 or 70 and 92. I really do think 86, it's also got, pretty significant meaning for this franchise and this fan base. So I think 86 wins is the goal. Just set your mind to 86 wins. If we can get to 86 wins, I'm pretty sure it's a playoff spot. So when we say you got to believe, that's the number that pops out at you. 86, 86, 86. And every series, every game is a notch closer to that. That's the Mets. We can briefly talk about the Giants. I feel bad trying to skip the Giants 2 weeks in a row. But man, oh man, there's just not a whole lot to report on other than there has been, I guess, a slight development in the Saquon Barkley contract negotiations. As I mentioned in the intro, Saquon has kind of broken the silence, quote unquote, and spoken to the media about what's been going on. And he said family business is family business. And then sources come out and stories get leaked and it didn't come from me. And you start to think, well, what happened to this being a family business, So he, and then Brandon Brown, the assistant to the GM, he seems like a pretty cool dude. He seems like he is definitely a future GM in the making. He said, being patient, being open to listen, not being stubborn and understanding what the market is and that things just don't happen overnight. So, and everyone said this, every Giants creator is saying it, most in the Giants media world understand what's going on. And everyone thinks that this deal is going to get done. Everyone, Barkley was saying that a lot of the reports were misleading, that a lot of what was being reported was inaccurate and wrong. And, he never wanted a market setting record deal or anything like that. So it's going to get done. There was an article like, is he going to sit out the season? I didn't even bother reading it because I have pretty much all the confidence in the world that he's not going to sit out the season. Pro Football Network's Arif Hassan looked at every running back contract signed since 2016 with an average annual value that consumed at least 4% of the salary cap and compared those players' production 2 years before signing to their production 3 years after their signing. So the 2 years before they signed the deal, the second deal, and 3 years after. He found that only 4 out of 17 running backs made good on their contracts. Dalvin Cook, who's signed a 5-year extension, was cut last week after only 2 years into his contract, which is bonkers. What's happening to the running back market is, I don't remember this happening, but I think this is kind of what happens. It's like the .com bubble bursting. Like, it just feels like it's on par with that. This is the running back bubble bursting. The Aaron Jones contract was out of control. and he had to renegotiate and restructure. But the predictions that people with knowledge and expertise in the area are that the first guy to get signed gets around $13 million per year, and then the second will get just above that, between $13 to $14 million on a 3 or 4 year term. If 4 years, the total guarantee right in the $30 million range. And this dude, Fitzgerald, believes that Barkley's going to get a deal similar to Derrick Henry, signing a 4-year, $50 million deal with $13.5 million guaranteed. So it's interesting seeing both sides of the debate. There are a lot of people in a lot of important positions who feel like the numbers don't lie, and that running backs, once they hit a certain age, their productivity declines. And once they're on their second contract, their productivity declines. And Saquon Barkley is not most running backs. I feel like I don't know how to say that in a different way each week, but that's basically what I'm sticking to it. He's not your normal running back. And, I think a lot of people pointed to last season saying, well, look at the first half versus the second half, what happened? And it's like, yeah, the second half of the schedule was tougher, stronger opponents who probably knew that the secret, not so secret to our success, the keys to our success was Saquon Barkley running the ball. That's how we were winning games, especially late, by running out the clock, killing the clock, and just grounding and pounding and grounding. So defense is probably adjusted to that and keyed on him, and then that opened up the passing game. So then the passing game flourished. But that's still Saquon, even though it doesn't pan out in his numbers, he's still impacting the game. If you don't have Saquon Barkley back there the second half of the season, that dramatically alters how defenses approach their game plan. So he's still impacting and affecting the game, even though it's not, coming out in his stat line, in the stat sheet. Those deals that were laid out just now feel reasonable. And, I don't know that a lot of people are comparing Saquon Barkley to Derrick Henry, but it's mostly because of the injury factor. I think if he played all 16, all 17 games, all those seasons, and was healthy-ish, I think his numbers would be in the same vicinity as Derrick Henry. So it's going to get done. There was another article from The Athletic about the pay disparity for running backs in the NFL. Compensation for running backs under the franchise tag trails every other position group except kickers and punters. That's kind of jarring, considering the amount of touches that some of the higher top echelon running backs get in a season. And Barkley's now being kind of grouped in with Josh Jacobs of the Raiders because he's going through a similar situation. And, Jacobs accounted for like 70 to 80% of rush. The offense flowed through Josh Jacobs, and he accounted for so much of their yardage and productivity. But that was the concern about Derrick Henry too, was like, all right, he was overused at Alabama because Nick Saban is notorious for, just overusing his running backs. And so a lot of people thought that was going to take years off his NFL career. So that is kind of eye-opening. Every other position group, when they have so many touches, and like so many of those touches are important. And, on offense alone, running back's $10.1 million tender this season is nearly $1.3 million less than tight ends, which is crazy, and $8.15 million less than offensive linemen. Granted, offensive linemen, they're not like the flashy highlight reel guys. They're not going to get the spotlight, but they are extremely critical to a team's success, as we know. The friggin' Eagles their offensive line, defensive line are ranked first, and they went to the Super Bowl, and they've been, So running backs are $9.7 million behind wide receivers, again, nutso, and $22.3 million behind quarterbacks, which quarterbacks, I should be number one, but $22.3 million is a lot of dough. So I think it's, his last name is Trotter, the author, cites the 2011 collective bargaining agreement that threw running backs under the bus, quote unquote, saying owners were tired of paying massive dollars to unproven players, but no position group has been more negatively affected than running backs, specifically first-round running backs, which Saquon Barkley is. Teams were allowed to contractually tie up first-round picks for up to 8 years, the first 4 on fully guaranteed deals, followed by a 5th-year team option and 3 consecutive years of franchise tags, which I did not know. Holy shit. I mean, listen, as a guy who wants to see Saquon Barkley be a lifer, it's like, that's cool that we can tie him up for years. But as a human looking out for another human like Saquon Barkley, that does kind of suck that like in his prime years, he can't earn what he should be given, what he deserves. I just think it's nice that a team, just seeing how great it was growing up before free agency and watching like every year, it's like, this is the Giants team. And yeah, you add some rookies here and there, but like, these are your guys year in and year out. And it didn't really change that much. But it's like to have a team, like a core or a roster that stays together for 8 years, you just don't see it anymore. I'm trying to think, like the Chiefs, no. So that's I don't know. That's a very old school way to think, I guess. But to have a team stick together for 8 years is cool. But then, but free agency came along and it kind of threw everything into a tumbler. First rounders could go their entire career without receiving a multi-year extension or reaching the open market in free agency. Individuals to renegotiate their deals after 3 seasons or become free agents after 4. So that applies to guys not in the first round, which is also interesting. It's like, wait, so this applies to just first rounders, but anyone outside the first round can renegotiate after 3 seasons or become free agents after 4. So the first rounders are getting supremely effed. Le'Veon Bell is the only running back since 2010 to receive the franchise tag and not sign a multi-year extension before the deadline. And I think he came out in an article, I don't know when, recently-ish, and said he regretted it. So yeah, running backs get screwed. They have to take advantage of what they can get while they can get it. And I think that's why a lot of people maybe have been inaccurately saying that Barkley is behaving or saying his camp is doing one thing when in reality, I think if it were that bad, there would be reports. I mean, like, obviously he's not happy with how things were leaked, but at the same time, I don't think it's spiraled or gotten out of control to the point where we think that, okay, like he's now trade bait, or like we just can't even deal with it and we're just going to release him outright. Like, there's been no indication that that's the path we're going down. So yeah, and this is if we sign him for 4, I would like to see him sign for 4 years. Sign him for 4 years, and then we got that window. That's our 4-year window. I really feel good about that 4-year window too. Some OTA notes and observations. There were some observations that the Giants offense has been throwing the ball deep in this spring, I guess you'd call it, at the OTAs. But again, there's no pass rush, and it's 7-on-7. So I think that's, you can do that. It's possible. But last season we were ranked last in the league in pass attempts, 20 or more yards down the field, which, I mean, at least once a game you can expect a tweet from me being like, throw the ball down the field. And so hopefully that changes this year. It feels like we have more weapons to at least make that a reality. And people forget, I mean, we talked about the offensive line and how critical they are. There were plenty of times on film in the All-22 when Kafka dials up a deep throw, deep pass, deep route, and Jones doesn't have the time to throw it or see it because he's running for his life, or he has to escape and he has to, scramble. So it's not like we weren't trying. It's just the offensive line yet again is not giving us the time to execute. A lot of people are heralding Paris Campbell who's been a standout. His 15 catches from Daniel Jones were 4 more than any receiver in the open practices in the spring. He also got reps at running back. What? Which is cool to think about. I guess Wan'Dale Robinson and Kadarius Toney also, when they were going through this during their time during the spring last season or the season before, they were also getting some time at running back. So it's kind of like, it's just a kind of tinker and see what you got available. So, but again, I like that they're open to it. The versatility, the flexibility, like we've mentioned in previous episodes, like that's only going to benefit you. As long as you're not overwhelming the team and they're not going to get all scrambled upstairs, I think I love that. You get to spell Saquon. Like I don't know why, but I thought like, okay, Paris Campbell in the backfield lines up as running back. Saquon Barkley and Matt Breida are split out as wideouts. Darren Waller is a wideout, but it's just like, the possibilities are endless. Speaking of Darren Waller, the Giants are exercising a lot of caution with him during the OTAs, which makes sense. There's no need to push him or see what he has. We already know what he's done, and he got to that level where he can rest and relax. Like we know what you can do. We're not going to risk it for the biscuit just yet. Jalen Hyatt, we've talked about Jalen a lot in this offseason. A lot of people viewed him as steal, and we got him in the 3rd round. And I think most Giants fans are pretty happy with that pick. But it is a little bit deflating to know that he's working with the 3rd team offense. And it seems like he could have a role as a deep threat specialist as a rookie, which I'm fine with. I think that's great. You take a shot with him once a game. That'd be kind of cool. And like half of those shots complete, possibly for a touch. A tutty. Yeah, I'm down with that. But 3rd-team offense is just like, oh boy. And people are starting to like say, oh, well, it's because he limited route tree, not press coverage. But, I still think he's going to be an asset. How can you not? You can't teach speed. You can't coach speed. So he's got the speed, and he'll have the speed as long as he doesn't get horrifically injured, knock on wood. But I'm okay. Like if he's not starting, my prediction still stands for him. I think the first half of the season, he's just going to be working out the kinks, learning the system, learning the offense, learning how to play at the professional level. We might see some deep shots to him. I'd love to have it once per game in that first half of the season. And then I think in the second half of the season, he gets more playing time. He gets more snaps and becomes more of an asset, especially down the stretch in December. I think that he's going to emerge. But it is like, again, it is a little jarring to see 3rd-team offense, like third-team offense, like not even the 2nd, 3rd. Darnay Holmes and Cordell Flott rotated as the 1st-team slot cornerback. Holmes could be on the trade block if the Giants find a taker, or he could wind up in a similar spot as wide receiver Darius Slayton a year ago. And the team requested a pay cut at the end of the preseason. And boy, was that could have gone sideways for the Giants and Darius Slayton, and miraculously almost didn't. So will that happen with Darnay Holmes? Does Darnay Holmes have the same kind of disposition as Darius Slayton? Like Darius Slayton has become one of my favorite Giants. Just following him on Twitter and seeing some of the quotes that are being pulled from him, it's just like, okay, this guy believes in this team. He believes in his quarterback. He wants to be part of this team. Can we say the same for Darnay Holmes? I don't know, so we'll have to see there. But it seems like I don't view Darnay as like a malcontent or, cancer in the clubhouse or anything like that. I think he's respected and liked within that clubhouse. So it could be a case of, what do you think? Pay cut this year, prove yourself, come back and get buku cash after? I don't know. And then we'll finish up with this. It's kind of this is like a clickbait article, and I clicked on it and I read it and I was like, I kind of regret clicking on this and reading it, but 3 ways Wink Martindale's Giants defense will look different this year. And they basically just outlined the 3 position groups. The linebackers, the defensive line, and the secondary. The linebackers were such a huge concern last year. It just didn't seem like we had a guy that we could really count on and depend on week in and week out as our starter. It was all over the place for most of the season and just started to gel and be somewhat coherent towards the very, very end of the season. But now we do have Bobby Okereke, big free agent signing. People tend to think that Darian Beavers, who we lost last year to ACL tear, will come back and be the starter opposite Bobby Okereke. I know Wink Martindale has said Michael McFadden has made some really great strides. I think he started 7 or 8 games last year, maybe 9. And Jared Davis, who we brought in way at the end of the last season, who picked up the scheme pretty quickly. And so that'll be an interesting competition to watch. And then outside linebacker is pretty much set, although it would be nice to get one. It feels like we're missing a dude. We got Kayvon, we got Aziz. That combo, if they can just stay healthy for 13, 14 out of 17 games, if we can have 13 or 14 plus games of both of them starting and being healthy, that defense is going to rock and friggin' roll, dude. That's going to be sweet because Aziz, even though he's missed a lot of games through an injury, when he plays and he's healthy, he puts up numbers. And then you have Jihad Ward, who I just, he's a dog. And Wink loves him and is like, as long as he plays, I'd love him to play with me. And when he's done playing, he can be a coach alongside me. Like, he just loves Hattie. And I think a lot of other players in that clubhouse do as well. So good to see Jihad Ward. And then it's like, well, then what are we doing with that other outside linebacker? Like the depth piece, is it O'Shane Zimenez? Is it Ellerson Smith? Who is it? We don't know. So it would have been nice to kind of shore that up and I'd have a lot more confidence there. But I'm trying to, off the top of my head, it doesn't seem like we have that guy just yet. I'm looking at the outside linebacker. Yeah, Ellerson Smith. Oh, Timon Fox. Yeah, Timon Fox. I dig Timon Fox. But, as O'Shane Zimenez, he was a free agent, didn't get a whole lot of attention. And so he came back on a team-friendly deal. And then Ellerson Smith, who, has kind of exceeded expectations. I know the expectations weren't very high for him, but, is he going to take the next step? I mean, so that's the only concern there is that if cross your fingers, either Aziz or Kayvon go down, that's going to be tricky. And that, it's nice to have Ward, who is better against the run than he is in pass rush. But who is that other guy? I don't know. Defensive line is the second way that Wink's defense is different this season. We got some depth. We've talked about it before, but we talk about it again. Again, all it is predicated on health. If Leo stays healthy, if Sexy Dexy stays healthy, we can't lean on them as much as we have in the past. Playing 80, 85, 90% of snaps on the defensive line. So to have Raheem Nunez, Roches Nacho, and Ashawn Robinson are huge. I know Ashawn Robinson has not been participating in a lot of the drills or whatnot at mini camps, and it's because he's coming off an injury. So, but you got to think that those are upgrades over, Justin Ellis and who's the other dude we had that was just a big old plug? I forget. Then last but not least, the secondary. We got Xavier McKinney and Adoree Jackson, who are kind of set in stone. All signs point to Deonte Banks starting opposite Adoree Jackson. And then who do we got lining up alongside X-Man? Seems to me like Jason Pinnock would be the favorite, with Dane Belton a close second. They also have Bobby McCain in the mix, and then even Nick McLeod, who we talked about in a previous episode, kind of moving from that dedicated corner position to moving all around the field, a la Julian Love. So, I'm trying to contain my excitement and my hype about this team because, the schedule is not working in our favor, but this is a different team. I think a lot of people would say we punched above our weight last year, right? We weren't expected to do much. And for us to go into the playoffs and win a playoff game on the road, I mean, that's speaks volumes to the coaching. And now we have a team that it's just all about staying healthy. That's really all it is. I don't have the stat in front of me, but I think we have the most wins lost or games lost to injury since I don't even know when. It's been a long time of just losing games because we lose guys to injury. And if we can just right the ship and get these guys healthy for the vast majority of the season, I think, guys get banged up and bruised and they're going to miss a game here or there. I'm okay with. It's one that extended trips to the injured list. If we can just avoid that, we'll be in a much better position. The guys that we pay a lot of money to, if they stay on the field and perform like they can, we're going to be in the hunt. We're going to be in the hunt graphic in December. Back-to-back seasons hasn't happened in a long time. I can't remember. So, going to last season, Wink wanted to accomplish two things, being great in the red zone and on third down. And he did that. And I think he can do that again this season. I think what ended up killing us down the stretch was whenever Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence left the field and came out for a breather, and our run defense really was atrocious towards the end there. I mean, that Eagles game in the playoffs was just exhibit A of just like, man, we cannot stop the run. So stopping the run, paramount, and I feel pretty good about our pass defense and bringing the heat, dude. I think I don't think that's going to change much from last season. I think a lot of people are saying, well, he's doing that to compensate for blah, blah. And it's like, all right, but let's just, I don't know, seem to work. Let's just keep doing it. All right. That's enough of that. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Happy Juneteenth. Father's Day weekend was enjoyable for me. I had my daughter, my 4-year-old daughter, for 5 days. And we had ourselves a weekend. Went to a farm that was very depressing. It was, I was like, oh, did something bad happen here? Was there a murder or something? Like, this seems like a crime scene. But it was, she still enjoyed it to so much. And that's rare. That's going to be rare in the future years. So I really need to cherish that now. Seeing her react so, like, being so excited about ducks and turkeys and goats and just like going back and forth and like, can we see the turkeys again? Can we see the ducks again? It's like, yeah, of course, this is for you. Like, she did, like, it took us so long to get there. And within 5 minutes, she was running on and tripped on the asphalt and scraped her knee and was like, I want to go home. I'm like, but we like just got here. Can you tough it out? Can you rub some dirt on it for Pops? And so I just went very slowly. Like, okay, I'm going to slowly pick you up and let's just sit down over here for a second. She's like, no, I want to go home. I'm like, yeah, but let's just catch our breath and like, let's simmer down and relax, I'm like, I can't, like, we just got, and it was free. I don't know if it was supposed to be free. They said, here's the ticket booth. It's $12 for adults, $8 for kids. And there was no one at the ticket booth. So I was just like, this is bad. I'm just going to walk in. But it was like the playground area, even though we didn't hang out there for long, was kind of a paradise for sports guys like me. Cause it was like, they had a basketball, like normally you just have the basketball pop a shot type thing where it's like, you're just trying to shoot into the hoop. This had the basketball pop shot, but also had like the football with the tires. So you can just throw footballs through the tires. And then it also had a baseball, quote unquote, wiffle ball station where you can throw it into buckets. And I was just like, I could stay here all friggin' day and do this. And then she's like, and then she trips and falls and is bleeding everywhere. But it was still fun. And then Sunday, she had her sports practice, which it's not one sport. They go through all the sports. They went through soccer, t-ball, lacrosse, which kind of cool. Like, it would be cool if she didn't really take to it. I don't think a lot of kids took to it, except there was one kid who was just like, okay, I can see you being a lax bro for the rest of your life. Just whacking everyone with his stick. And then this past week was like track and field. And I think that was the one that she liked the most. I don't know. I like us Lynches, not really track and field folk. We don't run fast. We don't run at all. So interesting. And then went to a brunch, a nice Father's Day brunch, where there was it was an hour wait to get like a booth or a table, and they were like, well, the hostess was like, you can sit at the counter. There's no wait for the counter. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we're gonna do the counter. It's fine. So we saddle up at the bar. We were right by where the servers, the waiters and waitresses were, making the drinks and pouring drinks. And we got to hear all the hot goss coming from the servers about, this table sucks. Did they just dine and dash? Look at the tip this one left me. They put a note on it. Like, we just heard all the dirt, all the behind the scenes, peek behind the curtain, so that was cool. And although, like, the kids menu, I ordered the pancakes. They gave her 6 pancakes. 6. What kid is eating 6 pancakes? Outrageous, but I think she enjoyed it. And she got all the syrup. She deserves it. And then last minute audible. I've been thinking about doing this for a while, and I was like, let's just do it. So we decided to do the safari at Six Flags. So I ended up, buying the tickets, and I was just like, and by the way, I guess little girls especially, but little kids in general have to pee all the time. There is not a time when they don't have to pee. And it's always at the worst possible time. Because I'm like, and I've gotten into the habit of asking, like, when I know there's a restroom nearby, and I can see a restroom, or I always ask, do you have to go potty? Do you have to go potty? And she's in this weird phase. And I don't know if this is like signs that she has a UTI, but the amount of false alarms that my daughter goes through for going potty is outrageous. And she always says, she'll say, like, I have to go potty. And I'm like, all right. And then she'll go walk over, and then she'll come back. She'll be like, I have to go. I tricked you. And I was like, this is a weird trick. And then sure enough, 5 minutes later, she's like, we'll be on the road, not near a restroom. And she'll be like, I have to go potty. And I was like, so are you tricking me again, or is this for real life? And she'll be like, no, this is for real life. Like, I gotta go now. And I'd be like, great. Cause we're now in a forest. We're now on a road going through a residential neighborhood with like no signs of anywhere that we could go potty. Cool. Can you hold it? And so then we get to the safari. So she holds it. It's a half an hour drive. I find a restroom. Oh, Mercer County Park, on the other side of Mercer County Park. We drive by, and I like pull in, and we go to the restroom, and she goes potty. I'm like, great. So we got another 25, half an hour to the park. There's a restroom right when you enter the safari. And I was like, all right, let it be known. Because the car in front of us, they had no idea what they're doing. So it was a long wait. So I was like, there's a restroom right there. Do you have to go potty? Be honest. Like, no tricking me. For real life, do you have to go potty? It's right there. There are no potties on the safari. We're going to drive our car. By the way, trying to explain the safari. She's been on the safari before, but she was 2. Yeah, she was like 2. We went in 2020, 2021. I don't know. But she's been on the safari before, but she was in a diaper. So it was like, hey, piss and shit your brains out. You got a diaper on, we can change it. And plus it was me, plus her Aunt Lindsay, or her aunt and her mother. We were all together as one big happy family. Now it's just me and her I gotta drive. I can't, I can only, I can only do so much. So I'm like, there's the restroom. There are no potties on this safari. And she's like, no potties? Where do people go potty? She's like, well, there's a restroom at the beginning, at the end. So you got to go at the beginning or at the end. And she was like, so we can't walk through. And I'm like, nope, we're driving through. We're slowly driving through. And she's like, all right, well, we can put the windows down, right? And I was like, no, that's not allowed. You cannot put the windows down. She's like, oh, okay. Well, can we? And she just asked like 1,000 questions. And every answer was like, no, that's not allowed. Can we feed the animals? Can we pet the animals? No. So she's like, I'm like, there's a restroom. You can't go. Like, I have the Minnie Mouse porta potty in the back seat. I put it right next to your car seat. If you have to go, you just pull up the lid and you just go right there, and we'll have to deal with it. Which, looking back, if she had to take a shit in that Minnie Mouse porta potty, oh my God, because we can't technically open the windows. I'd have to crack windows for that. You'd have to. Like, you'd have to. You can't. That's one thing. I would probably get kicked out for that. I'd be fine with getting kicked out for that if it was like she had to take a shit and she pooped in the Minnie Mouse porta potty. But she said no, she didn't have to go. So I was like, all right. And then sure enough, it was like the first station that we're in beyond the main gate where you can't turn around. She's like, yeah, I gotta go potty. I gotta go potty right now. And I'm just like, oh my God, dude. And so it was, I can only imagine the mental warfare that was going on inside her little brain about like, well, I have to go, but I don't want to go in this Minnie Mouse porta potty because there are people like staring at me in the car behind us. And I could see it in the rearview mirror. It's like because everyone's going 5 miles per hour. So they're all like bumper to bumper essentially. So you can basically see into the cars in front of you if they don't have the tinted windows. And we do not, for sure not, have tinted windows. So it's like, she's like, do I really want to put on a show right now? Like, I'm not really cool with it. Like, she's starting to get that age where, I don't know that I want people seeing my china and my tush. So I could see her. She would open the lid and she would start to kind of drop trowel, and then she would pick them up and she'd be like, no, I just tricked you. And I was just like, okay. Feels like something's brewing in that head of yours, that noodle, that nog. Feels like something's brewing. And like you're going back and forth, and it's like, I told her she could get out of her car seat and she could walk around. She liked, so she came up in the front seat. She would go in the back seat, front seat, back seat, front seat, back seat. But, and I would try to point out animals, and I could tell when she's got like potty brain because she had no interest. I'm like, look, there's lions. King of the freaking jungle right there. Look at the size of his mane. She'd be like, Daddy, if you were, it's just like, look, there's a tiger. It's a white tiger. We have never seen a white tiger in person that you remember. She's like, oh yeah, so big, the stripes. Just like she could not focus. And then she was like, where are the snakes? I'm like, snakes? You saw a friggin' giraffe, an elephant. You're gonna sit here and talk about snakes? Okay. But I think overall she enjoyed it. It was probably an hour and a half. It can be 3 hours if you're like one of those people that literally stops at every station and just stays there. But I think she had a good time there. And then it was off to the playground here. And then, eventually I hit a wall and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I've been dadding pretty hard all day and I need just sofa time. Let's just couch it up and watch a movie. And we did. We ended up watching Storks, which is, I think maybe some people don't. I think most people don't like it for some reason, but I think it's a great movie. I love that movie. Mostly because it's Andy Samberg. Is it Jennifer Aniston? I don't know. But so many good one-liners and jokes in that movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, and so it was Father's Day weekend. We opened my gifts at the end there. Got some pretty cool gifts. A book of dad jokes. Can't go wrong with that. A dome dock. Something that you just like screw into your wall and you can literally put all your hats. I have like 1,000 hats. So it's like you just put all your hats in there. A brew mate. Kind of just like a fancy schmancy koozie. Keep your drinks cold. Although I don't know when I would use it. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. I feel weird traveling with it. Like, would you like a? No. I have my own. So sorry. But some golf tees, some golf bags that look like vest for your wiener. There, I said it. Hate to get graphic, but it's exactly what it looks like. Just like a nice warm vest for your dong piece. So overall, like a pretty nice Father's Day weekend. And then Juneteenth today, I got to spend 4 hours at Pep Boys for regularly scheduled maintenance for my car. Apparently I needed 4 new tires and windshield wipers. And like they were basically saying like, hey, you're lucky to be alive. You should be dead on the side of a road, embedded in a phone pole or a tree. With the way that this car is, what are you doing? So 4 hours there of my off day because I had off from work. So it's like 4 hours of just like I've scrolled to the end of the internet and back. And I have to listen to Pat Robertson and the Miracle Network on the TV. Why are you guys watching this? Are you into this? And then followed by Jerry Springer, and then the bouncer Steve, security guard Steve, his show, which is nuts. And then Judge Maybelline, Small Claims Court, is just, it's super fun. But I was just like, there's so much arguing and yelling, and it's just nonstop. Make it stop. So yeah, that was the Father's Day Juneteenth weekend. And that's it for this episode. I will say this. I finished Black Mirror. I liked it. I can see where the haters are like, I think it's kind of, I don't know, jump the shark is the right term. But I think a lot of people heading into this season were thinking it's just more the same shit, right? It's just like, oh, we get it. Technology is bad. But they must have heard that criticism or seen it online and adjusted, because most of the episodes were not set in this near future, distant future where technology is so hyper advanced. In fact, it was interesting because some of these episodes I would not even think were Black Mirror episodes. There are 2 that really stand out to me. Like, what I don't understand how this is, because I don't know if it's the creators or the showrunners have come out and said that it's not a series about how technology is bad. It's a series about how people can be bad with technology as like a element, a top element. And I think that's very true this season. There was only 5 episodes, but Demon 79, the last one, and then Maisie Day, which I think was the next to last one. First of all, each episode was set in different time periods. So I think right there, that was their way of saying, hey, it's not all future, distant future. Like, it's also, it's not, the series is not just this. It can also be this, more like Twisted History. No, that's not it. Time Zone. Oh boy. Twisted Twilight Zone. Oh boy. Neal Lynch, she done did it again. So it does feel like it's more getting, it is leaning more towards Twilight Zone instead of this whole technology driven series. Demon 79 was set in 1979, London, I believe, England, Scotland. Maisie Day, I think that was 2005. It was set in. It was about paparazzi, and so that to me was like, okay, they're kind of, because Black Mirror is when a screen, your TV screen, your iPad, your phone, your laptop, when it's off, it's a black mirror. You can see your reflection in the screen, and the stylistic, how the aesthetic for the show graphics and the treatment, it's a cracked screen, and that's kind of like a foreshadowing of like, okay, we're all cracked in some way, or like, whatever. So first off, there's Joan is Awful, which I didn't realize that was Annie Murphy for like the first half of this episode, and it drove me banana land. I was like, is that friggin' Margot Robbie? There's no way that's Margot Robbie, right? And no, it's friggin' Annie Murphy from Schitt's Creek, and also Kevin Can Go F Himself. So, and she's just such a great actress. I love her. So that one was, and it was also interesting because the first two, I think it was Joan is Awful and Lock Henry, were very focused on Streamberry, which is like basically like that style and aesthetic, that look that Streamberry had, like the sound effects and the visual effects were like, it's Netflix. It is Netflix. So I was like, oh shit, are they just gonna like Dookie all over Netflix this entire series? That's kind of wild, but kind of cool. Sure enough, no, it was just the first two episodes. But so Joan is Awful, where it's like, and it's, oh boy, it is kind of nuts to think that we could very well end up in that. It's just, and that's the appeal of Black Mirror, right? It's like, it's so tangible, it feels so possible and realistic. But that each person, they have a show tailored to every single person in the world. And that person is going to watch because we're, in essence, most people are not necessarily selfish, but like very self-centered in that, if there was a show about you and you're watching it, you almost can't look away, that kind of thing. They were focusing on that, honing in on that. And so I thought that was a really interesting concept, but even more so that you can have these series that are completely just like CGI driven and AI driven. There's a kind of a knock on terms and conditions, when Annie Murphy ends up going to the lawyer and saying, how are they getting away with this? This isn't possible. I didn't agree to this. And the lawyer's like, actually, terms and conditions, you said that you could do that, and they have access to whatever at all times. And so that's why they're able to turn around so quickly, is because, they basically record it and then they're able to do it with this, like, digitally, Salma Hayek, like licensing her likeness, like not even acting, not even being on set and acting. It's just like, nope, we're just going to take your digital likeness and we're going to use that. And like, that's it, like to think that is the future of shows and streaming. It's like, ugh. But that's like that's basically what Black Mirror does to you. It freaks you out, man. So I thought Joan is Awful was pretty cool. And then there was the one scene where Salma Hayek is talking to her lawyer. She just kept saying defecation. It was just cracked me up. What was the second episode? So the second episode, Lock Henry, was also, so you kind of, and I thought that's why it was going to be a running theme. Streamberry was going to be a running theme through all five, because it was like in Joan is Awful, when they're scrolling or browsing Annie Murphy and her boyfriend, you see Lock Henry was like one of those shows in Streamberry that you could see. And then the second episode is Lock Henry, which is focused on true crime and how it's, and I've struggled with this too. I mean, I work for a company where our number one series is like a true crime series. And it's like, I'm conflicted because I feel a little icky, because it's like, well, we're like making money off this thing that was truly a tragedy, like a traumatic, awful thing that impacted people in real life. Like, this is real. People lost someone, people, went through such travesties, and it's just like, so that was tough for me to wrap my head around. And I'm not like a huge true crime fanatic. And I think it's definitely in the zeitgeist right now. It's people are struggling with it. You're seeing shows that are kind of addressing that now, like Only Murders in the Building. There's that one with Kaylee Cuoco that just came out, based on a true story, I think it's called, where it's grappling with this. You have these fanatics who are treating it like a game of Clue or like a murder mystery dinner party. And it's just like, well, no, that person was actually murdered. There's actually a killer. There's actually family and friends that are deeply impacted and affected by it. So I think Locke Henry really wrestled with that a lot. And that was, like, to me, one of the more Twilight Zone-y episodes. Was just like, these two young filmmakers have stumbled upon a story that they has personal resonance for the guy, the boyfriend, who's like more deeply entrenched and connected to it than he originally thinks, and going down that rabbit hole. So it was quite the journey, but it's like, and then at the end, what an ending. Just heart-wrenching, dude. Heart-wrenching. Just to think that, like, and to see the reaction that the filmmaking community or the entertainment industry gives to him after everything he's gone through. It's just like treating it like it's just a story he came up with. It's like he didn't come up with this shit. It actually happened to him and his family and his friends and his girlfriend. And it rubs me the wrong way every time to see that. Ugh. So I thought that was a pretty good episode. It was like shades of Little Silence of the Lambs ish, but not really. But yeah, oh boy, the twists. The twist. The only issue I had with the twist was, why did the mother, unless she's so, and this is, I guess it's true to her character. It's not like that far-fetched for her character, but I guess her mind was so warped and has gone into such dark places that why would she stop them from making the film? And I think that plays into the theory or the idea that a lot of like killers, serial killers, criminals want to be caught or want people to know that they've done what they've done. They want that notoriety and they want to get credit for a lot of that stuff. So you'll hear talk about how like they'll revisit the crime scene and stuff like that. So that makes sense. But it to me, as a logical person, it's just like, wait, you did all that shit and you're still allowing this to happen? And okay. Guilt too, right? That's going to eat you up a lot. That's going to eat you alive. So I think the guilt too is probably what's going to drive you to want to reveal yourself or expose the truth. It's Locke Henry, pretty decent. And then I thought this was going to be the best episode of the series of this season. I think it was called La Mer. No, it wasn't. I think that was the song. Shit, now I can't remember the name of the episode. I think it was the Sea. Season 6, episode 3. Beyond the Sea. Beyond the sea, somewhere. Da, 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 da. So this episode is set in an alternative 1969. So right there. Like the first 2 episodes, it's like, all right, this is probably modern day. But then this is where it kind of went off the beaten path for this series. An alternative 1969, where you have 2 astronauts who are up in space on a space shuttle together, David and Cliff, played by Josh Hartnett. And oh boy, I feel like such an a-hole for not knowing this dude's name. Jesse from Breaking Bad. And I say that every time and I feel like such a fool. Paul? God damn it. Les Paul is the guitar maker. Paul. Oh boy, I'm not gonna give up on this. I'm telling you right now, Jesse. I know everyone is screaming their brains out at me right now, but I'm gonna find out. And I can't. And it's like it's Jesse from Breaking Bad. Like that's all I have to say. People know who I'm talking about, but I need to know this guy's name because it's wrong for me to not know the guy's freaking name, dude. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm telling you. And you can look away, and you can go away, but I hope you come back. I'm gonna figure it out. Paul, Aaron Paul, jeez Louise, and Kate Mara. Yeah. So Aaron Paul, Kate Mara, Aaron Paul, and Josh Hartnett play the two astronauts. Josh Hartnett's family life is like the bee's knees, like top notch. He's madly in love with his wife, and he's got 2 kids, a lovely daughter, a great son, younger son. And then you look at Cliff, Aaron Paul's home life, and it's like a wife and a son, but they're distant. It's like they're not, Josh Hartnett's like dancing with his wife and like finger banging her, and and Aaron Paul is just like, oh, you're reading again. Huh? Reading your book, and then just walks off somewhere, and then like gets in bed and like immediately turns off the light and rolls over. We've all been there. And like the son is like never around. So yeah, there's like 2 contrasting views of home life. But the catch is that the Aaron Paul and the Josh Hartnett that we see with their families are actually like robots. In this alternative 1969, they've somehow come up with the technology so that they can create a robot, and that the astronauts, while they're up in space, can link, I guess, their consciousness. Like they can, like they go in the pod, they lay down, they close their eyes, they put in their key card or whatever, and then their consciousness goes into this robot, and they can like control the robot's body. It's sick. It's pretty sick. Kind of similar to that show that's on Amazon Prime right now, which I thoroughly enjoyed, with what's her face and what's his name. The Peripheral. Yeah, with Chloe Grace Moretz, I believe her name is, from Kick-Ass. Highly recommend for me, dog, The Peripheral. I thought that was a great show, but it's very similar to The Peripheral, where they're up in space, they're sending their consciousness down to the robot body on the Earth, and they can literally see, feel, touch, hear, like they have all their senses, which I thought was cool. And we see Josh Hartnett's life is just like awesome, and Aaron Paul's life is kind of like, something's off there. They then mixed in a little Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where the Manson Manson family murders were going on. And so they infiltrate Josh Hartnett's house. They end up subduing Josh Hartnett's robot body, cutting off the hand so they can see what the insides are like, but mostly to show the audience, like, hey, this is a robot. Like, look at the robot. And so they end up killing his wife and kids in front of him. Oh, so then he spirals up in space. And there were a few times during this series where I was like, oh, I know exactly where this is going. And they subverted it, and they didn't go the way that I thought they would. So kudos to them for pulling that off. It was an hour and 20 minutes. And there was a one point where I saw the hour and 20 minute runtime where I was like, oh, this could have been a movie. Why isn't it a movie? But I could see why it's not a movie. Thought Kate Mara was awesome. It's basically, all right, so now this guy, and they burned the Josh Hartnett's robot body. So he has no robot body to go into. And in order to make a new robot body, he would have to be down on Earth to go through the whole rigmarole. And so he's basically now stuck in space on they're in year 2 or 3 of a 6-year mission up in space, which is kind of nuts. I don't know that has that ever happened. Is that real? No, right? So Aaron Paul feels really bad for Josh Hartnett and is like talks with his wife and is like, so what do you think about what do we think about letting him use my link, right? So that he can insert my key card, he lays in my pod, and then his consciousness goes into my robot body. And they're like, yeah, for like an hour a day or whatever. Like he gets to come down, he gets to walk through the forest, he gets to paint, he gets to do all these things that he enjoyed so much before the tragedy. And so they end up doing that, and then that's where you can kind of see where this is going, right? Like he starts to fall for Cliff's wife, Aaron Paul's wife, Kate Mara. And so I thought, okay, like Aaron Paul has shown little to no interest in his wife. Like there's the passion's gone, right? The love is gone. It's not there anymore. So obviously she's going to go for this Josh Hartnett dude who's a painter. He's into books. Like he's romantic and all these things. And it just doesn't go the way you think it does. So I thought that was cool. The ending is one of the most fucked endings I've ever seen. Like the most Twilight Zone of Twilight Zone endings. A twist ending that honestly probably ruined it for a lot of people. But like I could see why that ending would ruin it for people, where it's just like, nope, don't buy it. Sorry. That's just not possible. But that ending was, oh my God, dude. I just like, but then again, like I'm in my head, I was like, I'm struggling to suspend my disbelief here. I'm really struggling because I didn't think that person had it in them to do that. But I've never been in space, isolated and occupied in space for an extended period of time. Who knows what that kind of effect has on your psyche? Who knows what kind of effect the murder of your entire family has on you and what that does to your psyche. And so I think all those factors combined, I eventually came around to it and I was like, whew, okay, I can see that happening. And now that it has happened, where do we go from here? And then it was like cut to black. And I was just like, oh, fuck, man. They got me. That was one hell of an ending. And I truly don't know. And part of me was like, as it was going on, I was like, why is he just not like this guy's now like you're up and around and this guy's incapacitated in the pod, he's somewhere else mentally, just like take care of biz right here. But it is what you have to remember is you definitely absolutely 100% need two people to do the mission. And they didn't stress it and overemphasize it, which I appreciate. They didn't talk down to us. But they did make a note, like, we need two people to operate this ship. We cannot have one of us go down for the count. Like, we need both of us. So that's important to remember as that ending is going on, because I was just like, but why is he not doing that? Oh, right. And why is he not doing that? He's just sitting there? He's just sitting there? But when Josh Hartnett kicks that chair out from the table and just, like, motions over to it, to Aaron Paul, it's just like, oh my God, what kind of conversation are we about to have right here? So also it's just like it's such an interesting pairing because like Josh Hartnett looks ginormous compared to Aaron Paul, who's like on the smaller, shorter side. And so the whole time, like, but yet Aaron Paul is just like this tough little dog, like barking Chihuahua type thing where like he's not going to take anyone's shit. And Josh Hartnett's kind of like the big lovable oaf, and then you can see how that gets turned and twisted. But man, so we'll get into how the episodes are rated. Maisie Day and Demon 79. I just watched Demon 79, and it takes place in Northern England, 1979. A meek sales assistant is told she must commit terrible acts to prevent disaster. And it has a lot of like, it gave me Knock at the Cabin vibes. So if you've seen Knock at the Cabin, the M. Night Shyamalan movie that came out with Dave Bautista, essentially similar type plot storyline where like, she's just beaten down. She works at a shoe store. called Posits. Her coworker sucks. Her boss sucks. She's forced to like serve like a killer, a guy who killed his wife, who hits on her, and like, ugh, she just has to deal with so much so many horrible people. And then she has to go to the basement because she eats stinky lunches. The boss is like, I guess a coworker ratted her out and was like, I can't deal with it. And the boss is like, you gotta like, let's like eat normal food, quote unquote. And she's like, this is normal food. But I guess it's like the smell offends her coworkers. So she has to go eat in the basement. And that's when she discovers this talisman, I guess it's called. It's a little token type thing, and somehow bleeds on it. And then like a demon's voice appears and is just like, hey, here's the deal. Like, you have to make 3 sacrifices over the next 3 days, human sacrifices over the next 3 days, or basically the apocalypse is going to happen. The world's going to end, and the city will burn. The world will burn. And so that's when she has to set out and do that. Yeah, I mean, I like the actress, the main actress. I like the dude that they got to play the demon. I thought they had some pretty decent chemistry. You really feel for her and what she's going through, and ultimately what she ends up coming to terms with, because she struggles with it, being a good person, but she has had these very violent fantasies and thoughts directed towards her coworker and her boss and the wife killer. So she's got some kind of darkness inside her. And then the theory is the talisman just unleashes this, right? But the demon can see futures and timelines and stuff like that. So like the first kill, it's just like a guy walking his dog who like stumbles upon her walking in her bathrobe with a brick in her hand and being like, hey, are you okay? And like normally you'd be like, oh, this is just like a normal guy walking his dog at night and seems like a good guy. And the demon's like, no, actually he like sexually molests and abuses his daughter, and she grows up and can't deal with it and kills herself. And so she's like, okay, I think I can do this. So that's there's like a loophole in there, and there's some twists and turns. And ultimately you're presented with this like question of, okay, is this really happening? Is this serious, or is like she lost her marbles? Because towards the end, it's the way it's framed and the way that things are going down. It's like, oh no, she's just crazy. She snapped. She was pushed to the edge, and she went over the edge. So, I mean, I like the look, the feel. I think I wasn't alive in 1979. But it just, I appreciate that the series is taking us there. They took us to 69. They took us to 79. They're taking us to different time periods. It doesn't always have to be the near future, distant future. It doesn't have to always be so heavily tech driven. Like Demon 79 doesn't feel like there was technology at all. There was little to no technology outside of maybe the TV that got 3 channels, So I thought that one was decent. And then Maisie Day was actually the second to last episode. And that one was, so Demon 79, I felt like, you look at the episodes in this season, all of them had some sort of reliant on some kind of technology as a major part of the plot. Demon 79 was like, there's little to no, as far as I could see, there was little to no relation. Like tech was not driving the plot. And I think Maisie Day they kind of weaned us off, because like Beyond the Sea, that's hugely tech driven. There's like a friggin' neural link connecting them, and that's how they're able to still enjoy Earth and not go, ape shit up and out in space. Maisie Day, the whole time I was sitting there, because this was the first episode where I was like, okay, but what's the tech thing? I felt like that was the first episode I was asking myself, but what's the tech thing? Like, there's no tech thing. And sure enough, it was like at the end, I'm like, oh, the Black Mirror is the lens of the camera that she's taking the picture with. Got it. Because it was Zazie Beetz plays a paparazzi who is low on cash. Her roommate's like, yo, you gotta pay the rent. You're late on rent, and this and that. And she's just looking for a big payday. She got out of the paparazzi game after taking photos of an actor who was caught with a gay lover at a motel, cheating on his wife, I think. So he ended up taking his own life. And so she ended up leaving the game. She's like, I can't deal with this, especially after seeing the paparazzi hound this one actress getting out of a car and walking down the sidewalk. And like the things that they were saying to her were just awful. So she gets out, but then she hears one of her friends comes back to her and is like, hey, this actress has gone missing, and if you can get pictures of her, they're going to pay a lot of money because we don't know where she is. She hasn't turned up anywhere. So if you can get a picture of her, that's $30K, and if you get a picture of her looking like a junkie, it's $40K. Like it's just disgusting shit. But the actress, I don't know who played the actress, but she ends up doing mushrooms and drinking, and she drops her wine glass or knocks it over and spills it, cuts her finger, and then decides to get in the car and is driving. And you could tell like she's just completely out of it. She's definitely going to get in an accident. And sure enough, she hits someone or something. And that's when she disappears. She doesn't return to set. She ends up holing up with a producer that she knows. She's visited by some kind of doctor who's like not a real doctor, apparently. And Zazie Beetz is able to track her down and follow her and get pictures of her, or get pictures of the SUV carrying her. She follows the SUV, and the whole time she's following the SUV, I'm like, there's no shot that this SUV doesn't know that this is happening. I mean, like I felt bad on Saturday. I was following this truck, what seemed like forever to go to like Six Flags Safari. I'm like, I'm hoping this guy in the truck doesn't suddenly stop and take out a shotgun, because it was like every turn he's making, I'm making the same turn. So I was thinking that as she's like tailing this SUV, and the SUV stops at a diner, she stops at the diner, guy gets out and like slashes her tires so she can't go anywhere, goes in the diner, and that's when she's able to get in touch with her friend who shows up on the motorcycle. She realizes that she gets chummy and friendly with the waiter dude. And he's like, oh, there's this like rehab place. A lot of weird things go on there, but like that's like the closest thing. And she's like, oh, do you think like big name start? And she's like, yeah, ironically or oddly enough, like someone has rented out the whole place and they've asked everyone to leave. And so she's like, that's the actress. That has to be the actress. So she goes with her friend on his motorcycle. They show up, and it's like these huge, and they even say it looks like Jurassic Park. Was this Jurassic Park? Because there's huge fences and gates. And so that's when these other two dickhead paparazzi show up, and they end up digging a hole under the fence and getting in. And I think this is why this is the lowest rated of the series, because it just doesn't feel Black Mirror. But then again, Demon 79 didn't necessarily feel like Black Mirror either, but had a much higher rating. And I think it's just like a better story told, a story that we haven't necessarily seen before. Like we've seen elements and parts of it, like Knock at the Cabin, but just done in a different way. And with Maisie Day, it was just like, oh, that's the twist, So that ended up being the lowest rated. But it was tough because like, I think it had me, right? It gripped me for a very long time. I was like, what's going on here? There's something else going on here. What's going on here? And like, kind of losing interest. And then when you find out the twist, it's just like, really? This is it? This is the twist? So yeah. Spoiler alert, if you want to hear it. The actress, when she hit the person, actually hit a werewolf and was bitten by a werewolf. And so she has become a werewolf. So when they're at the compound, the rehab center, they see a light, and they end up waiting for the doctor to leave. And they're like, this doctor's not really a doctor. He's like a quack kind of guy. I don't understand why she's seeing him. And so they end up getting up to the room, and they see that she's chained to the bed, like got a big shackle around her neck and on her ankles and wrists and whatnot. She's chained to the bed. And so they were like, oh my God, what are they doing to her here? They're like, they must be like abusing her. This is disgusting. What? They should not be keeping her like this. So then Zazie Beetz ends up like removing the shackles as these paparazzi are just like rapid fire. That was a crazy scene. Like, it gave me the heebie-jeebies, and it was freaking me out. But like, they just rapid fire flash photography in this actress's face, who's like basically, I don't know about naked, but like almost no clothes on, sweating, like disheveled, covered in like dirt, and just looking really like malnourished, and just it was upsetting, disturbing. And then she turns into the werewolf. And it's like, we just have not figured out a way to master that. Like, we had what was it, Werewolf by Night or something like that came out on Disney Plus around Halloween. And I thought that even though I don't like black and white, I think the way that they shot it, the way that they made it look, it was like cool. But they went the CGI route here, and it was just like, I don't know. We can't figure it out. We have not been able to figure out how to get the human to werewolf transformation that looks real. And I mean, I definitely it definitely turned my gut a little bit, right? Got my skin crawling, right? But at the same time, I was like, oh, but it's CGI. I mean, it's still, I think it was the sound effects that got to me more than anything else. And then she just runs rampant on her. She goes on a rampage and starts killing everyone. And then so Zazie Beetz and her friend end up at the diner where she was before. And they're like, try to get, there's a cop there. And they're like, oh, you have to listen to us. Like, and man, Black Mirror, tough look for cops. I think cops really got the raw end of the deal for Black Mirror season 6. Cause like, you think about the cop in episode 2, Lock Henry, like, didn't turn out so well for that cop. And then this episode, Maisie Day, like, that cop was like, all right, typical, like, all right, settle down. You're hysterical. Like, get a hold of yourself. And he gets mowed down by the werewolf. And then the cop in Demon 79 too, having to, like, he's got this, picked up the scent, and he's like on to this woman who is thinks that she's the prime suspect, and questioning her, and like, all right, you know, he's got a hunch, and you know, thinks he's doing the right thing, and then it ends up being the wrong thing. It's like, oh boy, cops, it's a tough job. Not sure if you're aware. So yeah, that Zazie Beetz ends up shooting the werewolf in self-defense. The werewolf then transforms back into the actress, and the actress is like, kill me, please, kill me, shoot me. And so she kicks the gun over. She places the gun in the actress's hand as if like, I'm not going to do it, you're going to do it. But then she ends up shooting her with the camera, taking a photo of and I was like, all right. Someone felt very smart in that room when they pitched that. Like, okay, so the actress says, just shoot me. And you think that she's going to pick up the gun and shoot her, but no, she picks up the camera and shoots her. So, and then I was like, oh, so that's the Black Mirror, is the lens of the camera. Whew. Yeah, that was the lowest rated one. So if we're going by IMDb ratings, Joan is Awful and Beyond the Sea got the highest ratings at 7.6 each, which I pretty much agree with. Lock Henry at a 7.4, which I thought was interesting. I thought that would be a little bit higher. Maisie Day at a 5.3, and then Demon 79 at a 6.9. I think these are some of the lowest for Black Mirror as a series. Like season 5, I think Smithereens had a 7.5. So season 5 wasn't that great. But season 4 had the USS Callister, which was an 8.3. Archangel 7.3. Crocodile 7.3, Hang the DJ 8.7, Black Museum 8.6. So season 4 had a couple of bangers. Season 3 had Nosedive 8.3, Playtest 8.1, Shut Up and Dance 8.4, San Junipero, which a lot of people say is their favorite, is 8.6, Hated in the Nation 8.5. So you can see like the overall ratings episode to episode from season to season have gone down as the series goes on. And who knows if they can recapture that magic. I think there was the feeling or the consensus was that people were getting a little tired of like technology is bad angle. So they kind of want to go a different route this season to mixed success. You have to appreciate it a little bit that they were willing to take a chance and go to 1969, go to 1979, 2005, and think outside the normal near future box. I still enjoyed it though. I could watch that all day. And if you're looking for a series recommendation, Silo on Apple TV. I don't know if a lot of people have Apple TV, but Silo has been every episode has been great. And even this last episode, I think the season finale is this Friday or the next Friday. But this last episode, it was just like, that's how you're going to end that one? You have got me by the beezalls, bro. So that's the episode. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll talk to you next time. Adios, muchachos.